Right, so we're back with this application. We have done basically the book class, the application class, the book adapter class. So now let's go to the main activity and see how we can put everything together now. So in the main activity, I'm going to declare the recycler view there. And that will ultimately link to a recycler view that we still need to add quickly to the main activity. So let's go to the layout for the main activity, which will be this one. I'm going to change the constraint layout there to just a linear layout, remove the text view there, and let's set the orientation there to be vertical. Right, so if you go back to design, we've got an empty design now, and I want to drag in just the recycler view there. So on this recycler view, just make sure that you set the ID to list. Right, so now we are done with the recycler view on the activities layout. Back at the main activity, we're going to link then that recycler view to this variable. Okay, so let's declare a few other things also. We'll need a layout manager there. Let's call it layout manager. And we'll also need the custom adapter class. So let's say .adapter. And let's call this one my adapter, as I've done in previous videos as well. So we need those three at least. Right, so now inside of my onCreate, let's set them up quickly. I'm going to say recycler view equals find the view by its ID. Now this is a bit easier than with fragments because this layout is directly on the main activity, so I can just use find view by ID. That's going to be r.id. I think we call it list. And then to that recycler view, we're going to set the has fixed size to true, just for performance. And then we can set up the layout manager quickly. So we're going to say layout manager equals new linear layout manager, just passing in this. Or you can say main activity.this if it's in another method or in another class or whatever. So we've got the layout manager then, and then for the recycler view, we need to set the layout manager to this layout manager. Now we already have our array list in the application class. There it is, books. So we don't need to create it here. So we're just going to create this new adapter, which is called my adapter equals new, we called it book adapter. Now you remember for the book adapter, there it is. What do we pass into the constructor is the context and the list. So let's pass in the context. So again, we can just pass in this, or you can say main activity dot this. Right, and then the second argument there will be the list, which will be in my application class dot books. So in the application class, there's a variable called books, and that is my list. And now we've got the adapter, so we need to set the adapter for our recycler view to that my adapter. Right, so now before we test it, let's just see what we need to do in the next part. So we'll basically get the list that looks like this. We're going to test it now. So what we need to do also is to add a title at the top and then do the action bar. So on the action bar, then we will go to next activity where we're going to ask the title, the author, the genre, and then add the book. So just keep this in mind. I'm not going to come back to this. That's what we'll need to do next. So now let's test out this one. So I'm going to run on that same device. So obviously my action bar will not look like that because we haven't done the action bar yet. But the recycler view should resemble something like this. So let's see. Right, so we've got Twilight there, which is interesting now because our whole layout spans basically the whole screen, which is definitely not good. So let's go back to the row layout, and we're going to click on the topmost linear layout and just make sure the height is wrapping the content. Now let's run it again. Right, so there we can say Twilight, Pride and Prejudice, Lord of the Rings, Notebook, Fault in Our Stars. So those two are romance, this one is sci-fi. Was Twilight also set as romance? Let me just go and have a look there at the application class. Okay, so the genre is sci-fi there. Let me just go and see. And the book adapter where we're testing for it. I've left out one there. Should be sci-fi. Let's run it again. Right, so this is now a bit better. Although the Lord of the Rings is should also be sci-fi. Let me just quickly have a look there. Some spelling mistakes there as well. So let me just see romance, sci-fi, drama, sci-fi. Just make sure about the spelling there. If the spelling is not correct, it won't show correctly. Okay, so now hopefully we will have the correct things showing up there. So Twilight should be sci-fi, Pride and Prejudice should be drama, Lord of the Rings should be sci-fi. Let's see. Yes. and then those two will be romance. So now I think we've got it sorted out. Okay, so for the next part now, let's go and see if we can do the action bar there to show maybe list of books and then the icon there. So what we're going to do now is just to quickly create that icon. So I'm going to go to right-clicking on your resources folder, go to new, go to image asset, choose your action bar and tab icons there. Let's give it the name add. Click on your clip art. Let's try searching for add. Let's take that one. And for the rest, let's make this holo dark so we have a light icon there. And let's say next and finish. Now, if you remember correctly, we need to go and create now a new folder inside of the resources folder. So you're going to right click, say new, directory, and we must call it menu. So make sure you're typing it exactly like that, menu. Now right click on menu, say new, menu resource file, and let's call this one main. Why main? Because it's part of my main activity. Let's say we had another activity called add activity, then I would have called it add. So it depends on what you want to do. Then what I'm going to do is to just add one menu item there inside of the menu, and then we can go into the settings. Right, so what we can do here now is to give it a title. So the first title there, let's call this one add. An important thing that we also must have is the ID there, otherwise we won't know which one was clicked. So let's call the ID also add. Let's add an order in category there, and for our example it's not really necessary because we only have one of them. And then I can also add the icon property there, and for the icon property I'm going to go to the add picture there. And then we can also have a show as action, and in our example I want to have it always shown, but we can even have it as if room because there's only one, so it should be fine. Right, so that is all we need for the main XML that we created now within our menu folder. Right, so let's go to the main activity now. So in the main activity we must initialize this whole menu system now for the action bar. So what we need is a method there. So I'm going to right click, say generate, and we're going to go to override methods. Now the method we want to have here is the onCreate options menu. So choose the onCreate options menu, and what we want to do here is to just call get menu inflator dot inflate, and now I need to go to r.menu.main, and then the second argument will just be this menu that was passed in, and that is called menu. Right, so this will inflate now my layout. So if you go to main and you go to preview, you will see that it's got that little plus there. Okay, now in my main activity, when that item then gets clicked, we also need another method. So I'm going to say generate override methods, and we want on options item selected. That's the method when we click an item, and we'll pass that into a switch. So I'm going to say item.getItemID, and then we can test for the different cases. In our case, there's only one case. So we're going to test for r.id.add. So you remember in my main XML there, we called this, that's the ID, add, and I'm now testing for that ID. Just go back to the main activity. So there's the ID add, and we can just call the break. So we'll do now what we need to do if we click this button or that action in the action bar. Now, in order for our title to display correctly, we're going to create just declare the action bar here. So I'm going to say action bar, make sure it's the version 7 app support one. Let's call it action bar as well, equals get support action bar. Now on that action bar, we can just set the title, and the title will be list of books. Right, so let's see if this works. Let's just show a toast there for now. Let's say test there, and let's run this and see if it works. Right, so now we have a list of books at the top. We've got this button where we click it, it says test. Everything working as it should. Now let's do the last part of this video, and that is to add, or last part of the application is to add a new book to this list. So for that, we'll need a new activity. So you're going to right click, say new, go down to activity, empty activity, and let's call this one add book. Say finish. Right, so let's go and quickly create the layout for this add book. So go to your layout folder there. Let's open up add book. I think I'm just going to close down a few of these at the top. All right, so we only have add book there. So for add book, I'm going to take away the preview there. So let's change the linear or the constraint layout there to a linear layout. Let's set the orientation to be vertical. And now let's go into the design. So what we want to do here is to ask the user for those 3 values for the book. So we'll need an edit text, and it's going to be plain text once. So I'm going to drag in one plain text, another plain text, and a third plain text there. So we're going to ask for the title, the author, and then the genre. And then we'll have a button there at the bottom to submit the new book. Right, so there's the components. Let's select all 4 of them. I'm going to set the layout margin on the start. Let's set it to 30. And on the right hand side to 30. Sorry, not the right. Let's go to the end and set it to 30. And then at the top, we can set a margin of, let's say, 10. Right. Let's click on these 3 and remove the text property there for them. For all of them, let's set the gravity to center horizontal. And now we can start with the hints. So let's go to the hint property there. Where's the hint now? There's the hint. So let's say, please enter title of book. And for this one, please enter author of book. And for that one, please enter book genre. Something like that. And then for the book, for the button there, which we can just say add book there. Just remove that last part. There we go. And then for this add book button, let's set the style there as bold. We can set the color there as a hash 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Fs. And we can set the background for that button to be the color. Let's take the primary dark color there, or maybe just the normal color primary. Okay, so there's our button. Let's make a bit more margin there for the button at the top. Let's make it 15. Right, so now for the button, let's set it to BT and add the ID. For the genre, it will be ET genre. For this one, it will be ET author. And for this one, it will be ET title. Right, so now we've got IDs for all of them. Let's go into the add book Java file and see if we can set up those components. So let's start with the button. Alt-Enter if the import is not there. And we'll have it as BT and add. Then there's edit text also. So there's an ET title. There's an ET author. And there's also an ET genre. Right, let's set them up quickly. So we'll have BT and add. We will have ET title. We'll have ET author. And we'll have ET genre. Find view by ID, r.id.et genre. Right, so all set up. We want to have a click event for the button. So it's going to say BT and add.set on click listener, new on click listener. Right, so what we want to do now is if we go to this activity, let's just go to the main activity and just activate this one. So if we click on add, instead of showing the toast there, we want to start an activity. So let's just say start activity. And the activity I want to start now is the add book activity. So I'm going to say new intent, first argument, main activity.this, second argument where you want to go, and that's add book.class. Right, so that will start the new activity. But now we want to do something else now. We want this activity to come back to, in order for us to update our recycler view. So we can't just do it like this. So I'll rather have the intent there at the top and call it intent equals new intent. And then main activity dot this as the first argument and add book dot class as the second argument, just to not confuse anybody now. So I'm going to remove that and we're going to pass in that intent. But now I want to start this activity for a specific result, and then we need a request code. So for now, you can go back to my videos on how explicit intents work to go to the description of what is this request code again. But basically it's just a unique value to identify that this activity add book comes back to this main activity. So that's request code and that's the intent. So the intent will just be to start the activity, but this activity must come back and tell the main activity to update RecyclerView. Right, so now this activity will start, which is called add book. Add book will start, and we will allow the user to add his title, the author, and the genre of the book. So when he clicks then on add book, let's just first check if those three values are not empty. So I'm going to say if etTitle.getText.toString.is empty, or at the same time etAuthor.getText.toString.is empty, or etGenre.getText.toString.is empty. So if any one of those three are empty, we'll just show a toast there. Please enter all fields. Right, what is the else part then? Everything went fine, and we can now add that new book. So how do we add the new book? Well, we'll just go to the application class, .books, that's our array list, .add, and we add a new book. So before this, I think it's going to be easier to just say book, let's call it book, equals new book. And now we need to add the title. So that will be from etTitle.getText.toString.trim if you want to. Second argument will be the author, so it's going to be etAuthor.getText.toString.trim. And the last argument, I'm just going to go to a new line there, will be etGenre.getText.toString.trim. Right, so there's the new book, and then we add this new book to the array list. Right, so I hope you've got this part. So we create the new book. There's the application classes books array list, and we add that new book to that. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to notify now the main activity that we've added a new book and that the recycler view should update. Now, in order to do that, we need to set the result. So I'm going to say set result, and you can see there's two constructors there. You can either just set the result code, or you can send some data through. So in this case, I don't want to send back data. If I wanted to, I can create an intent and then send the data with the put extra method, passing in the intent here. But I just want to set result code as result. Okay, everything went fine this side, and now I can call add book dot this dot finish, and this will close down the add book activity and take me back to the main activity where we update now the recycler view. So this is very important to set the result as okay, because if the result is set as okay, it means that the book was now added to the array list. So if the result is not okay, we will not notify the recycler view that it should update. Now, where does it go back to in the main activity now? So in the main activity, we said start the activity for a specific result called add book, and there's the request code. But how does it come back now when we set the result and we close down? So we need a method for that. So one extra method there at the bottom, right click, generate, override methods on activity result method. So if any of this is not clear to you, you may go back to my video on explicit intents. So you'll see there's a request code and a result code. So the request code is this one. So we're testing, we can firstly test there. If the request code equals 1, then we know it is the add book that came back. And now I'm going to test if the result code is also result code is result OK, which means that if it came back from add book and the result was set to OK, then we will notify the RecyclerView to update. So how do we do that again? We go to the adapter and we call notify dataset changed. Let's see if this works. Right, so we've got our list of books. Let's click on the plus there. Title of the book, let's say The Hobbit. Author of the book, J.R.R. Tolkien. And the genre, let's make it sci-fi. Make sure about your spelling there. Ultimately, the best way here is to actually use a spinner, but we'll get to that later on. And say click on add book, and you can see The Hobbit was added 100% at the bottom. So it notified the RecyclerView. If I click on the plus there and I just go to back there, you can see nothing happens, obviously, even though we added something new. So we can type there a new title, a new author, whatever. But if I go back to the activity, result is now cancelled and it won't update your RecyclerView. So if we click on the plus again, let's change the title there at the top for this activity. So for add book, let's just go the same route again. So it's going to be ActionBar. Just make sure that it is the support version 7.1. Let's call it ActionBar again. Equals get support ActionBar. And on that ActionBar, we're going to set the title as add new book. Let's just see this again, run it again. Let's see how it displays now. Right, so there's the list of books. Go to the plus. You can see add new book. Now we can add, let's add The Hobbit again. Author of the book, Tolkien, and then the genre sci-fi. If I say that it should be drama there, then the icon will change. No? It will be to the drama one. Okay, so there's The Hobbit or Tolkien, and then if I click on plus, I can see also add new book there. Right, so this is the challenge. I hope that you could get this one correct. Maybe there's some new things that we also added here by using actually this, if you go back to main activity, using the on activity result to notify the RecyclerView that it should update its data. Hope you've learned something from this challenge.